Yay. Hi, good evening. This is Tiger. Welcome to my stream after I managed to get the connection with Twitch going again. No AJ tonight, unfortunately, because she is out working, so I have to do this on my own tonight. Nevertheless, I'm quite happy that it is not longer that hot. Kara is sitting here on my feet. And I think we can do this. It's probably the last Train Sim World 4 stream, since in 1 week time it is already within the early access period for Train Sim World 5, and I think there is no way around this. Today I'm back in Austria, doing Austrian signaling, respectively Austrian operating rules, connected with the maximum speed limits that you can get from the law in Austria. So that is even beyond signal speed, track speed, but the maximum velocities that certain trains may not go faster than those speed limits, because it is already given in the law, a bit like section 40 EBO in Germany. And I prepared a service that I wanted to run with the Vectron, a freight service, and I don't know if this is a thing that is annoying you as much as it is annoying me, that in Austria they seem to limit every freight service throughout the map and everywhere to 100 kilometers per hour. 10, 11. And I wanted to know whether this is actually legit or not. And, well, I think it's not. I think you should be allowed to go 120 as long as you're running at least PZB. And if you're running LZB or ETCS full supervision, then at any rate. So let's play this nice service, and at a certain point let's go into the presentation and discuss the speed limits that come directly from the regulatory law, in case someone takes offense that I'm talking about law if it is only Verordnungsrecht, but still it is a regulatory law. So the term law in English is a bit wider than our German and Austrian conception of Gesetz, what is typically only a Gesetz im formellen Sinne. Anyway, let's get our train on the way. We are on our Vectron Bauer 193 in Austria. What is happening with my screen now? It is switching to game mode a couple of times, flickering. I hope.
Zugbeeinflussung.
Oh, come on. Screen be nice to me, otherwise I can't do this. So, trying to get the cockpit working. We have two Vectron locomotives pulling a quite heavy train, 2112.8 tons. That means we have definitely to run ENG on the locomotive. Might still be okay to be in PZBM, so this should be okay. Spitzensignal is on, and at the back there is nothing on. But what we definitely have to do is to set a long loco formation beyond the 1200 tons im Wagenzug, and we have here only the locomotive in G, whereas the first 5 vehicles behind the locomotives need to be set. So what is this now? My screen is constantly flickering. This is not a good thing. Hope I can get it to work properly. So the brakes are set. Now I can turn
AFB
on the AFB.
AFB.
I will get starting already as a train service, so I can set it to 40 according to the signal speed. Release the brakes, which will take probably a bit. Since we are not getting any reading here, we can turn it off. Tell the signal that we are ready to depart, and then actually after we have set the AFB to 40, we can try to get this train moving. Good evening, Spectre. Very nice to see you. How are you doing? I hope your screen is not annoying you as much as my screen is annoying me. So, signal tells us that we can go 40. We have seen the sign with AS telling us that this is an exit or starter signal, Ausfahrsignal. And we will get back to this. What it means that this is an exit signal. Spectre, it's nice that you're here. It's great that you are fine. And he hopes that everything is fine. Yeah, everything is fine. HE is not here because she's working, so I have to do this on my own tonight. But so far everything is okay. And we talked about this last week, Spectre, I think. How can you see if a signal is an entry signal or a home signal? Or an exit signal, Ausfahrsignal, and here we have seen in Austria they have those nice signs that tell us what kind of a signal our signal is. It being an Ausfahrsignal, starter signal, we don't need to adhere to the 40 that the signal signaled until we get to the next main signal. But as soon as we are through the last switch, we can run our train's length and then accelerate a bit more. And what you can see here is, no, not yet, because we're still not out. That was the 40 limit. Because we can see we're still not through the switches. Well, it is counting down, 330 meters to go. There is the Roadrunner, and we can get this train up to speed. And now we can see we will always be limited to 100, even if we can go 120 in PCB mode M, even though the track speed is higher. And I don't know what information this is based on. But I have my doubts that this is actually legit and that freight trains in Austria cannot go faster than 100 kilometers per hour. Nüziders station we are passing. The signal repeater here at the end is always indicating a red light, what is not correct, because the signal is not red and we did not get a distance signal indicating that the signal was red. This has been acknowledged months ago, but will probably never be fixed. On our way to Bludenz, but you can always easily see because of those rocks on the right. And we are actually getting a yellow signal here. Indicating that we have to stop. And with a train as heavy as that one, it is actually advisable to use a lot of brakes in the beginnings to not get stopped by the PZB. And afterwards aim for 30, because 30 will be the end speed that you have to be at in PZBM after hitting the 500 Hertz magnet. That is typically not here in Austria. Here is the signal repeater telling us that the signal is still red. This time it is correct. CD Radar, that's my name, that's my game. Nice to have you on the stream. And Spectre says, I think in Austria they can go 120 as well. Don't quote me on that, but I think a German YouTuber who drives freight said something like this. Yes, I will show you as soon as we get to the presentation why I think this German YouTuber is totally correct. Obviously, if the cars or the locomotives have a slower speed, then it is a different story. Alright, signal switch to full green. AFB holding brake, it's letting us accelerate. Obviously it takes a while until we get all the cars free again and the brakes released. So can anyone tell me how freight trains are rated in the Semmeringbahn DLC, for example? Are they limited to 100 as well there? Because here the track speed is definitely higher than 120 kilometers per hour. I think it's about 140 here. And still no chance to be allowed to go faster than 100. Next station should be Nenzing. But obviously we're not stopping there unless we are getting a signal. And I think it takes a bit the fun out of the game if you're always limited to 100, because then the only track speed change that you get as a freight train running from Bludenz to Wolfurt and on is the 90 reduction at the tunnel before you get to Feldkirch. Apart from that, it is always 100, 100, 100. Now we should be getting close to one of the dead sections here. Circuit breaker open. And circuit breaker closed. And actually, because we were in the dead section, we went too fast. Because the electric brake did not work anymore. And this was what I actually wanted to test here. If the train is compensating the lack of the electric brake here with blending in the air brake, but it doesn't. I cannot tell for Semmeringbahn, but if I remember correctly, Rosenheim-Salzburg is limited to 100 kilometers per hour as well. Also in the German part, well, yeah, I think I've heard that before. So, for dead sections, when we're running downhill, we have to brake a bit before that, because the AFB won't use the train brake. That's Nenzing here, if I'm not mistaken. Then we will soon be in Schlinz. Schlinz-Beschling. Here we are. You got the love Austrian city and village names Nenzing Schlinz. But it's with an S, I think, at the end. Schlinz. Beschling. Schlinz. As opposed to Linz. What was it then? Frastanz, I think. And then we get to the tunnel and then Feldkirch. This could be a great route too if they just got around to fix some small annoying bugs. some speed signs that are not really correct. This one Signalnachahmer, and this limit to 100 is really well, it's taking the fun out of driving freight trains here a bit, because you're always on your 100, except for this little speed reduction that we are just driving up to right now. We actually have a Zugschluss here, unlike some other services. So should be getting closer to Frastanz, if that is Frastanz at all. With that siding behind the gate. And now cautiously, because now we're running up to the one and only speed limit to 90 that we encounter. Signals are green, and behind this bridge two hectometer signs, no one, then the announcement to 111 first, right? The 90 is in the tunnel. Actually slowed down too fast because I was looking forward so much to the speed limit. We've got the bridge and the signal, and now we have to slow down anyway. Because of the signal. Probably have to stop in the tunnel. Here's the reduction to 110. What would be interesting if we actually were allowed to go 120. Now crawling in towards Feldkirch and the tunnel, expecting a red light on the next signal. There is the announcement for the 90 reduction. You can turn on the headlights a bit so that we see signals and stuff in the tunnel. Here's the Signalnachahmer telling us that the light has already cleared. Do we trust that? We can trust. Signal has cleared, but we have to deal with another Halt erwarten, it will be called in Germany. Vorsicht, it is called in Austria. Next signal is most probably red, at the moment at least. Might go a bit faster, since the next signal should be the exit signal after Feldkirch. In PCBM we always have to slow down to 65 or slower within, I think, 29 seconds after hitting the 1000 Hertz. Here is the 90 reduction, and then to 45 and 30 with the 500 Hertz that we typically don't get in Austria. The shoot signal here allows us to pass. Actually, when we're getting a yellow distance signal, we have to be prepared for those quotation marks shunting signals to be at red, not allowing us to pass. But here it allows us to pass, and the repeater tells us that the signal at the exit has cleared. What I don't know yet is if in a situation like this you can rely on the signal repeater and start accelerating, or whether you have to still drive as if the exit signal was at red. Here's the next protection signal. Because the exit signals here are quite a bit away from the platforms. And from what you can see behind the post, signal is actually green. The 90 limit ended even before we got to the platforms, and there is no way to accelerate our train so fast that we get into trouble with that. So it should be okay. AS Ausfahrsignal. And while the train is accelerating, I think we can go to the presentation. And why is the presentation still on? Interesting. What I wanted to talk about is in the Austrian Signalling, first a bit about the legal frameworks, that we know where those things are actually regulated. it is more or less the same thing that we had for the German signaling the other day, but obviously reworked for Austria. Austria also divides the law between statutory law and regulatory law, law that is passed by the parliament and law that is passed by administrative bodies like especially ministries, so departments of transportation, for example. You have also in Austria a federal state, so that you can have federal legislation and legislation that is passed by the Bundesländer. I don't know any piece of law that is passed by any Bundesland in Austria, but it is obviously possible. Then we have the same European law that we have to respect in Germany, that also is valid in Austria. And then in Austria, a real law, a statutory law passed by the parliament will be the Eisenbahngesetz. It is called EisbBBV, so it's abbreviated there. It always reminds me like Eisbärengesetz more, but it is actually Eisenbahngesetz here. And here you have a lot of provisions, again, many of it transforming European law, and you have the division between Eisenbahnverkehrsunternehmen, the railway carriers, and the Eisenbahninfrastrukturunternehmen, the infrastructure managers. Also here set out in the statutory law. And on the level of the regulatory law, you have a very important piece of regulation for Austria, the Eisenbahnbau- und Betriebsverordnung, what is regulatory law not passed by the parliament but by the Department of Transportation. And here you can, unlike in Germany, actually find a lot of things that are regulating the operation of railways and signals, and how signals are used and how they have to be set up and stuff like this. So this is quite interesting if you can bring it upon you to read law texts. Then obviously you have also directives issued by the infrastructure manager as netzzugangsrelevantes Regelwerk, just like in Germany as well. And there you have not the Infrago or DB Netz AG, but the ÖBB Infrastruktur AG. And on their website you can find a lot of those regulations, like the Dienstvorschrift 30.02 with a lot of operating rules, and the 30.01 other way around. 02 is the signaling book and the 01 is the operating rules thingy. Then obviously also the railway operators have to yank out regulations for their drivers. That will be the ÖBB Personenverkehr. Unlike in Germany, we don't have the division between Fernverkehr and Regio on this level of the group, and Rail Cargo Austria will be the cargo carrier for Austria here. And if you look, for example, in section 21a of the railway law, statutory law, there you can find that the railway operators are actually required by law to tell their employees what to do and how to drive the trains properly. Also, the accepted technical best practice rules, die anerkannten Regeln der Technik, not the allgemein anerkannten Regeln der Technik, but the anerkannten Regeln der Technik, they are also a thing in Austria, and they are, for example, mentioned in section 9b, paragraph 2 of the railway code. And we know that from the German thing, those two things need to be put into all the regulations that railway operators hand out to their drivers. So just a short recap how this legal framework is typically built in a European country on so and so many levels. Things can be located, and in Austria it is important to know that if you're looking for regulations how to run your trains and how to put up signals, you can already start looking into this thingy here, the Eisenbahnbau-und-Betriebsverordnung, the regulatory law level that is telling you actually quite a lot, even more than the German Eisenbahnbau-und-Betriebsordnung is telling you. Perny, nice evening to you, to Finland. Nice to have you on the stream. Great. You made it to the juicy parts of the presentation, because I actually ventured to give you a piece of law, the section 113 of the Eisenbahnbau- und Betriebsverordnung that regulates the maximum speeds that trains cannot exceed, no matter what signals are put up and what line speed is indicated by the Fahrplan or whatever. Those are the maximum speeds that the law requires trains to not exceed, unless they have a special permit from the Department of Transportation typically. And don't be afraid, I won't go through this text in reading it out for half an hour, but I will structure it and break it down for you. It's only the first 5 paragraphs. There are even more, and it gives you some maximum speeds for trains, and here you can find the 120, for example, for freight trains. So paragraph 1 tells us that, among other things, like obviously the maximum authorized speed for the vehicle and the maximum authorized speed for the cars, and the speeds that are set out in the Fahrplänen and signaled. And there is this section that gives you the maximum speeds. This is what the paragraph 1 tells you. And this important thing is that it's the maximum authorized speed of trains, or for trains, not for shunting services, but for trains. And then you have more or less 3 divisions here that give you different limits, and the first one is the biggest and obviously the most important. Perny says, is it common in Europe to have some rail sections that certain train types cannot use? We have freight-only sections and passenger-only ones. This is actually up to how it is regulated. It is not so super common, as far as I know, in continental Europe. In Germany, we always have the problem that the freight trains are running on the same tracks, or not necessarily the same high-speed tracks as the high-speed trains, but even there, like in the night, you can have trains running there. I know it from Japan that they have a completely separated sections that can only be used by freight services and passenger services. Obviously, there are always on lines that have more than 2 tracks that it can be divided, and sometimes you have goods lines, like in the UK, where some lines are dedicated for freight services. But in general, they crisscross a lot in Europe. Back to my law here. Authorized speed of trains. Then we have 2 numbers, 1 and 2. The maximum authorized speed is. Then we start continuous air brake, and to spoiler that, as far as I have seen in Austria, you always need to have a continuous air brake on your trains that are supposed to run there. So this is why those 2 alternatives both set out that you need to have a continuous air brake. And then the division is no freight cars or special vehicles in the train, and here you have freight cars or special vehicles in the train, right? So, in denen Güterwagen oder Sonderfahrzeuge befördert werden. So this is more or less the division between freight services and other services, especially passenger services. And for the passenger services, not freight trains, you have a limit of 250, wenn die Strecke und so weiter Zugbeeinflussung hat, wird selbstständig zum Halten gebracht und außerdem geführt werden kann. So you have a safety system that can stop a train automatically and also guide the train. And this is what you get not from PZB, but from LZB, or for example, also ETCS full supervision. You get all the information that you need to drive your train, not from the signals wayside, but from the signals in your cab. And the system can stop the train if the need is be, and it can also guide the train. So if running on LZB ETCS full supervision, 250 is the limit. Unlike if you don't have a system like LZB or ETCS full supervision, you're limited to 160 if you are at least running on PCB or a similar system. Obviously, I simplified it a bit and named the system that there are. Obviously, you can use different systems that have at least the same level of safety. They can stop the train automatically, like with PZB, and they can guide the train with the more elaborate system LZB ETCS full supervision. The same limits actually apply in Germany. If you look in section 40 of the Eisenbahnbaubetriebsordnung, and then obviously you might wonder, why are there trains in Germany that can go faster than 250 kilometers, like 280 or 300 even? And as far as I know, there are only 4 lines in Germany at the moment where you can go faster than 250, and for each and every of these lines you need a special permit from the Department of Transportation. So not even the Eisenbahnbundesamt can do it, you need it from the Bundesverkehrsministerium. And they give you additional safety requirements and stuff. Then you can go faster than 250 on LZB, or you can go 160 if you're only running on PZB. And if you're not even running on PZB, you can even go 100 in Austria. This is faster than in Germany. There you are limited to 50 according to 40. But this is because it also catches train that do not have a continuous air brake, what is still a thing, obviously, according to the rules in Germany, but not so in Austria. Inspector says, I'm not a legal professional, but they do seem to like PZBU because they only mention 160 and 120. Of course, a lower limit may follow from other rules. From other rules, of course. Actually, they did not use PZBU for quite some time, but they are using it now. And obviously, it is always possible that from other sources the limit is lower. So if you're running on PZBU that limits you to 100 kilometers per hour, then this is the limit. So the limits that we are discussing here are the limits in the best cases. Track limit is as high as possible. Your train can go it, so the cars are not limiting you below that, your locomotive is not limiting you below that, and your safety system is not limiting below that, the signals are not limiting you below that. So those are obviously only maximums. If nothing else is limiting you, then those are the legal limits here. The other things that are mentioned in the full version of the paragraph 1 here, or the paragraph 1 in this section here. And here on the freight equipment, it more or less says, if you read the whole thing, if you're running on LZB ETCS or PZB, if you're running on at least PZB, if you're running on one of those 2 safety systems here that is mentioned, then you can go 120. If not, you're limited to 100. And the game always limits us to 100 all the time. I do not know where they are getting this from, because actually the rules comply with what you said, Spectre, that this one YouTuber who drives freight trains in Austria says that the limit is 120, just like in Germany. The other limits are not so super, well, yeah, so I just put out the tags here. So those are the passenger limits, those are the freight limits, and they apply in accordance to what safety systems you're actually using on your train. A limit of 50 applies if for whatever reason you are driving your leading vehicle not from the front cab but from the rear cab. What you can only do if there is another guy in the front cab who can activate the brakes if need be. So if something is malfunctioning or whatever reason only the rear cab on your locomotive is working and you're controlling it from there, obviously you cannot see where you're driving. And this is the reason why you need a brakeman in the front cab who can activate the brakes, and then you're limited to 50. And you're also limited to 50 if the CIFA breaks or malfunctions, does not work properly. You don't have LZB ETCS full supervision, and you don't have a second man in your cab. Then you can only go 50 and have to stop at the next station to get it fixed. If you're running on LZB ETCS full supervision, CIFA is not so important, obviously. And if you have a second guy in your cab who can intervene in case that you get incapacitated, then it is possible to go faster even if the CIFA is off. But here you can see the next safety system that can limit the speed of your train. If you are pushing the train with your locomotive, that means you are sitting in a locomotive that is at the end of the train and you're controlling it from there. Not the thing that you are sitting in a driving trailer and remote controlling the engine, but you're actually sitting in the locomotive at the end of the train and controlling it from there. Then you are limited to 25, unless you have someone at the front of the train who can activate a continuous air brake from there. Then you can go 40, still limited. But if you are driving from a driving trailer, those limits obviously do not apply, because then you are driving from the tip of the train. So those are the legal limits that you can find. Most important, obvious, the blue ones here. And someone still needs to explain to me why all the freight services are limited to 100 kilometers per hour in Austrian DLCs in the game. What is missing? We have been talking only about trains. In section 127 of the same body of law, you find regulations for shunting services. In Österreich, they are called Verschubfahrten, not Rangierfahrten like in Germany, but Verschubfahrten. It's the same, shunting services. And the limits are also quite the same. You're limited to 25 as a shunting service, and this is something that you have to do a lot in the game, that you are starting as a shunting service at the yard or ending at a shunting service. Except on Maintalbahn, they are faster there. I actually don't know. Yeah, in Maintal, yeah, you're right, Spectre. Sorry, I posted it on. Now I know what you're talking about. In Maintalbahn, they are called Verschubfahrten as well. True, because they are for whatever reason they used the Austrian yard limit sign there. Halt für Verschubfahrten. Yeah. You're totally right. Sorry, I did not get it in the at once. Okay, 25 plus on site. So as a shunting service, also in Austria, you are limited to 25 on site. And then you might remember this from the stream about train services and shunting services. There is a possibility that the signaler dispatcher, Weichenwärter, the guy in charge of the shunting, can tell you that the way that you are shunting along is free, so that there is not a different another vehicle, and that the switches are set more or less properly. That is called in Austria verbindliche Verschubwegfreimeldung. So it's a definite announcement of a clear track for shunting, and then you can go 40, just like in German rules. I don't know if it can be defaulted, like it can be done according to German rules. In the game, obviously, we never get something complicated like this, so it is always safe to treat every shunting services as to limited to 25 kilometers and on site, obviously, what is always a very more restrictive requirement. Again, summing it up, passenger trains 250 if running under LZB ETCS full supervision, 160 if running under PZB. This is why you typically don't find a non-LZB ETCS full supervision train running faster than 160 in German and Austrian DLCs. And if neither, you limit it to 100. Freight services limited to 120 unless something else limits the speed even more. And if you're not running on any safety system of the kind, then you're limited to 100 with a freight train. So our train that we are running, according to those rules, even with the safety systems turned off, is allowed to go 100 kilometers per hour. So the speed that we are actually going at the moment. This seems rather lenient in my opinion, but still. That's obviously as it is supposed to be. Yeah, if clear track is announced, that was the last thing for the 40 for the shunting services. And how long are those limits valid, and how long are signaled limits valid? You know that you're starting your train from a station stop, the signal in front of you tells you can go 60 or 40, and then you're going out on the open track and you wonder, yeah, do I need to wait for the next signal to tell me that I can accelerate, or when can I accelerate? This is the thing that we had discussed on the stream in German signaling regulations with anschließender Weichenbereich, ensuing area of switches. In Austria, they have a similar thing that is called ohne die anschließende, only Weichenbereich. And this tells you that, or how far the area is where the speed limit applies. And for that I have made an example track here. You're coming in with a speed limit of 110. This is your train coming in. This is just that there is actually more track in between, and at some point you're getting a distance signal, and then you're getting your home signal for this station here. Let's say you have to go on this track that is bottommost here. Still clear track, but a reduction to 40 is announced. And this is the home signal, marked as Einfahrsignal ES, with this little marker, so you know, aha, now I am in the station limit, and I have to apply the rules that are here for driving under station limits. Einfahrsignal, home signal. Before you actually get out of the station, again, there might be more signals, and all the main signals that are in a station or at a station between the home signal and the exit signal, the starter signals, are typically called intermediate signals, Zwischensignale. So Zwischensignale you will, according to the rules, at least to the Austrian rules, only find in station limits, where they subdivide the tracks at a station, always between the home signal, Einfahrsignal, and the Ausfahrsignal. Sometimes, if the distances are not long enough for the braking distance, then instead of intermediate signals, you can get those signals, typically labeled shunting signals, Schutzsignale, that have only white lights and red lights, so they can require you to stop or allow you to pass on, but don't give you any information about the next signal. And those can be used if there are more signals needed to subdivide the tracks at the station, so that you cannot fit the required braking distance in between. And you see that in this DLC a lot at Feldkirch, at Bludenz. You can see it that the station area is not subdivided by intermediate signals, but those signals here. And they can even start a train, what is quite interesting, because with shunting signals of that kind, you cannot allow a train to depart in Germany, at least not under normal circumstances. In Austria, this seems to be working. So if you're running some services that are starting in Bludenz, you don't get a green signal at the beginning, but you get one of those signals here that allow you to go on. And then here is your stopping point, here is the station platform, and then the next signal is, here in my example, the starter signal, the exit signal, the Ausfahrsignal. here giving you a limit of 60 with the double green at this point. So this is our example here. And then there are some switches, and after that, after a while, you get a new distance signal, and then here is the next main signal on the open track, for example, a block signal or an automatic block signal. This will be the marker for a manually controlled block signal, and this is the marker that you get from an automatic block signal, Selbstblockstelle. And it is the only sign of that kind that, according to the rules at least, is yellow and not gray or whitish. So this is my example. So how long after all those signals is now the Weichenbereich, the area where a signal speed limit is applicable? And you remember that from German law you have the rule that for home signals and intermediate signals it is typically in the station area up to the next main signal, and with the exit signal, starter signal, Ausfahrsignal, it is until you are out of the last switch, and then the Weichenbereich ends at this point. You can end it with some markings in the Fahrplan, in the timetable. You can use ZS3 isolated one or an ZS10. You remember the stream that we did about that, and other things. In Austria, it is a bit different. It does not distinguish between the different types of signals, but it is here in this section 82 of the Eisenbahnbau- und Betriebsverordnung, and it says more or less that the Weichenbereich starts at the signal that is protecting this section of track, this Weichenbereich, das deckende Hauptsignal, the covering, if you translate it word by word, so that main signal that protects this following part of track, and it ends at the next main signal within the Betriebsanlage. It's a bit hard to translate Betriebsanlage, so I translated it at the interlocking, because this is typically because all the signals in one Betriebsanlage are connected and need to be operated in the way that they work together. So that would mean within the same station, within the same yard, within the same junction interlockings, within the same crossover interlockings, would be resulting in the same regulation that you have in German law. Entry signal up to the next main signal, also here. From the intermediate signal, also here, up to the next main signal, to the starter signal. Do we have a similar thing that we have in German law, that the Weichenbereich ends prematurely if you have a regular stopping point here? You remember that was according to German regulations, but we have this not in Austria. This is a thing that I don't have, I did not find, I have not found, and I think it does not exist. So within a station, the Weichenbereich always ends at the next main signal, also the starter signal here. But what if we are passing the starter signal and there is no more main signal within the same Betriebsanlage, within the same interlockings, within the same station, for example, or junction interlockings, or whatever? Then it is the last switch that we are running over that still belongs to this interlocking complex. So also not so dissimilar than the German ruling. Here it is typically until you are clear of the last switch, and then any speed limit that comes from here, your starter signal runs out, and as soon as your train is out of the last switch, you can accelerate, because otherwise you would have to drive on with the slow speed that was required for getting you safely across the switches until you get to the next main signal. What if there is no more switch coming after the starter signal? You know that we had a rule for that in the German regulations that told us if there is no more switch behind the starter signal, or no switch in a block behind a block signal or whatever, then the Weichenbereich is ending and starting at the starter signal, so that we only have to go through the speed limit with our train, and as soon as we have passed the exit signal we can accelerate. I'm actually not sure if a rule of that kind exists in Austrian law. I have not found an explicit rule that says that, but if you apply the other rules saying Weichenbereich ended at the next main signal of the same interlockings, if there is no main signal at the last switch of the interlockings, and if there is no switch, then it should actually end at the exit signal itself. If you know more about that, please tell me, but I would just think that it is like this. If there is no switch after the last main signal at the Betriebsanlage, then the Weichenbereich should end at this point. What we also can do, according to Austrian law, what we have seen in German law with the ZS10 signal or an isolated ZS3 signal, we can end the Weichenbereich after the starter signal or somewhere else actually prematurely by putting up a Geschwindigkeitsanzeiger. In Austria they are square, not triangular, but still there are white on black, sometimes announced with the yellow on black version, but if it is used like it is used here, then you get a 60 limit from the starter signal, and typically this would run until you get out of the last switch. But if you want the train to be able to accelerate earlier, then you can order a higher speed, like for example the track speed of 110 by means of a Geschwindigkeitsanzeiger. So if Geschwindigkeitsanzeiger, that does not end the Weichenbereich, but you can change the speed limit within the Weichenbereich. And interestingly enough, I think it is the section 32 paragraph 3, it says it can only be done once per Weichenbereich. So you cannot do it a couple of times, but only once. Can either increase it or lower it, but whatever you do, you can do it only once, and then it must be good for the whole Weichenbereich. Yeah, that would be the purplish thing, and then the speed limit that is connected with the signal ends here as soon as the train has passed. Yeah, I'm always saying as soon as the train has passed. I have not found a rule explicitly saying that you have to pass the signal or sign that allows a higher speed with your whole train before the increase in speed limit actually gets valid. But at least there is a rule telling us that the speed limit that is ordered at a main signal is valid for the whole Weichenbereich, and in my opinion this includes also the parts of your train that are coming behind your locomotive. So as long as anything of your train, even the last car, is within the Weichenbereich, then the speed limit still applies, so that you actually have, in this situation where you get a 40 limit from this signal and then a 60 limit from the starter signal, you will have to pass the starter signal completely before the new limit can actually be applied. Unless you have a Geschwindigkeitsanzeige earlier that allows you to go 60 there. So how would that translate into speed limits? Here you would have the 110. The signal doesn't change it because it is a high green. At this signal you get limited to 40 with the green over yellow. At the same time, distance signal tells you next signal will be limiting you to 60. When you are clear of that starter signal and you can go 60. This limit applies typically until you are clear of the last switch, unless we have actually the Geschwindigkeitsanzeiger that allows us to go back to the 110 track limit earlier. Then you go on like this. Here at the block signal without any switches behind, if my interpretation is true, you only have to pass this signal with 60, and then you can accelerate again. This is what it looks typically on your pause screen, telling you that at this point you have a bottleneck where you have to pass with 60, slow down, pass it, and then you can accelerate again. One interesting rule is that if there is no speed indicated when you're entering a Weichenbereich, if the signal is not giving you a high green, then obviously you go track speed. But if there is a signal that does not have any speed indication, like for example especially a signal of that kind, that just tells you with those two vertical lights that Fahrverbot aufgehoben, that you can pass this signal, but it is not giving you any speed indication. If no speed indication is given, then you are limited to 40 in this Weichenbereich. So that is a default signal speed limit here. Unless obviously another speed is signaled or the track speed is lower anyway. Then obviously the lower speed applies, and if another speed is signaled, then the higher or lower speed, the signal speed is indicated. But this is a thing that sometimes in the game you get started at signals of that kind, and if you don't get any information about the speed that you can go, then you will be limited to 40, even if you cannot see it in the game, because the track speed limit might be higher or whatever. Good. Summing up those little indicators that are typical for Austrian signals that I have not seen in other signaling systems so far, at least not as much as they have been implemented in Train Sim World. ES, we have seen it here, is the home or entry signal. ZS is the intermediate signal here. AS is the starter or exit signal. BL, not BS actually, I said this wrong in a stream that we had the weeks before, will be a manual block signal, and SBL will be the Selbstblockstelle, would be the automatic block signal. Then you can get so-called Deckungssignale, signals that protect something or cover something, like a crossover where you can go from one track to the other. That would be a Überleitungsstelle, Übel, or protecting a junction where you can go on a different track actually to go on a junction even, and this would be called a Abzweigstelle. That's what this acronym is for. There can be at the same time block signals, those cover signals, and can be found in the game, some of them actually. UBL I have seen at any rate. Sometimes you can even get additional information with those indicator plates that tell you where you're actually going across the junction with that. And sometimes you have signals that have different functions depending on what route is set. So there can be, for example, this signal can be an exit signal if you're going to the left, because then you're going out of the station already, or it can be an intermediate signal if you're going to the right, because the station area is going on there if you go up straight. And with the red arrow, it is telling you that the diverging line to the left will be already the exit signal. So quite nice if you are calculating your Weichenbereich, those indicator plates, because then you know if it is a home signal, intermediate signal, or the exit signal. And then you know whether you have to stay on the signal speed until the next main signal, or if you can accelerate as soon as you are clear of the switches. Yeah. That was what I wanted to go through today, Weichenbereich and the speed limits that come from the law directly, and the question is, why is in the game my service here limited to 100? Here it looks as if we can just have to go to this point and then we can accelerate to 140, but this won't work, I'm afraid. Rankweil, I think, is this, if I did not miscount. So this is the track between Feldkirch and Dornbirn. Vorsichtssignal. No, not Vorsichtssignal. Vorsichtssignal is a different thing. But the distance signal showing Vorsicht. If I'm not mistaken, this is Sulz-Röthis. One of the weirder names. Signal has cleared, hasn't it? It's hard to see from here. This is one of the signals that are a bit hidden behind stuff, but it has cleared. You can see it. In this Eisenbahn Bau- und Betriebsverordnung you can also find regulations for how far afar the signals need to be visible and what angle they need to be put up. can see it's the exit signal, starter signal, Ausfahrsignal. So the Weichenbereich ends as soon as we are through the last switch, probably this one here. Not important at the moment because we got a high green and no speed limit. Next station should be Klaus in Vorarlberg. What I like in this particular service is that you're actually getting some adverse signals. Oh no, this is not close. Close, yeah, one of those stations here. We're just getting too close now. What do you have on your idea list currently? As I said, suspension. Then German signaling, like entry into dead-end tracks or tracks with verkürztem Einfahrweg. I have for American signaling dark territory, like cap signals only territory. I have a track warrant control, permissive signals in German signaling, for example. In Polish signaling, speed signaling, level crossing signaling, and also permissive automatic signals, and should why am I going too fast here? Is the you love SimRail so much. As soon as we are through the Train Sim World 5 hype, I think I will go back to SimRail. For the 750 subscribers on YouTube, when I ever will get there, I might want to do the special stream, the 12-hour stream on SimRail then. Maybe until then they have a new update. It does sound sick, you say? Well, I have to think about it. Maybe I like it anyway. Multiplayer, why not? Why not doing a 12-hour stream on multiplayer? Simrail, obviously, CD Radar. Yes, for 750 subscribers on YouTube, I would go for another 12-hour stream. And why not try doing this on multiplayer in Simrail? Just an idea. I'm not saying that I have decided on this already. While we are passing Goetzis here. Because I did a special stream at 250 and a special stream at 500. So next one will be 750. And I'm at whatever 725 at the moment. And by the way, I'm approaching a red signal, guys. I am looking forward to that, CD Radar. He says, then it will be my pleasure to set up route for your train. Yeah, that is the idea, right? So maybe we can meet up a bit for that occasion in Simrail. I will get maximum priority. That is so nice. That does sound super cool, he says. Yeah. Well. 12-hour stream with the Rosenbahn Christmas jingle. No, you will be safe from that. I can find another jingle for that. Night driving in Simrail does really have a vibe, though. Yeah. I totally agree. Can you actually dispatch trains that are supposed to run on a certain line to a different line? Like deviate the trains, send them on a deviation? And Perny says way better than Trains in World. No, the server will not allow that, says Perny. I see. Otherwise it cannot handle it anymore. So we have been at Goetzis. That means we should get to Altach now with the dead section after that, if I'm not mistaken. Inspector says I tried Maintalbahn at night with snow, clouds and a bit of fog. It was very atmospheric. Oh, I believe that. I think the Maintalbahn is not a bad route at all. Yeah, with the headlights. Headlights in Trains in World. What I don't like in SimRail are the speed clocks. They sometimes... You cannot really drive according to the model speed clocks because they jump around and never show a proper indication. Or is that just me? Activating the air brakes a bit so that we are not running too fast when we are going through the dead section here. What word is that? Tizi-tazi. Is this... Is that what it is called? Tic-tac, tic-tac, yeah. And signals again. That's totally correct behavior. Yeah, on the old EMU, the ET57 or whatever it is called. There it is, especially those grey boxes with the analog speed clock. The digital ones are better, I think. There you don't have this problem. Hohenems, I think we are now. So, signals cleared. The Signalnachahmer says it has. Trust the Signalnachahmer? Yeah, we can see it has cleared. $728 YouTube subscribers. Oh, great. And I gained 1 or 2 since I checked last time. Even a funny thing, the CD radar, the locomotive that I sent on Discord has this dial, and after the modernization it is also digital on the screen. I see. But the digital one is not approved by the railway authority, so the driver has to follow only the retro one. Okay. And does it jump around that weirdly in real life as well? Yes. Okay. So, the long straight part to Dornbirn. Ray says he doesn't like the controls of the Pisa trains. Yeah, well, the Pisa trains are fun to drive with the cruise controls. Just always hit the button for the speed that you're aiming for. Bing, bing, bing. Wanted to get like a stream deck so I could just hit the buttons on that. So thanks to the lag, we're able to see the SBL for Selbstblockstelle not on yellow. Did you see how the indicator for the switch switched in the approach? That must be very old code in the game, because the draw distance for the switch indicator is so super short that you cannot really go by those indicators. So, what is that? Haselstauden or Hattledorf? I never know which one is which. Hattledorf, I think. Already Dornbirn. Signal again. Signal again. Hutteldorf? No, Hattledorf, I think is it. It is. Hattledorf-Schoren, Dornbirn, and then Haselstauden. Signal still red, says the repeater. And it definitely looks red. And now it changed. Here, for example, I don't know why there is still some air in the brake cylinders on the locomotive. Does it just need that much time to drain them?
Zugbeeinflussung. Zugbeeinflussung.
Now we need to be cautious not to fall into the restricted, because we are actually slow. Now we are beyond the 10. And Fernie says, however, I still do not understand why I need to push my throttle forwards to give the cruise control. Yeah. because you can switch it off and on with that, no? What is actually quite cool, because you can set your train coasting, and then if you want to go back to applying power according to the speed set with the cruise control, you just tap the throttle forwards. Maybe I am being totally wrong, suspected, but I watched several cab ride videos involving the Wolfurt Yard. It is a modern container terminal with cranes and, of course, no overhead wires on those tracks. To me, it looks different somehow in Train Sim World. Oh, that might totally be. The cruise control does the coasting for you. Really? I mean, sometimes you want to lose some speed by coasting down, no? To let the speed drop from 60 to 40 and just have it coast without using the e-brakes, for example. And if you have the cruise control on, then it will activate the e-brakes, no? And there is already a toggle button for the cruise control. Yeah, that is true. But I think it is quite handy using this this way to switch off the cruise control with the throttle lever and then switch it on again. Dornbirn. Yeah, Inspector, I think they just used the Wolfurt Yard for their purposes. And maybe the route is... I actually don't know what time it is set in. Maybe it is a couple of years older. And without care, what are you carrying about all the time here actually? Oh, my bandana. Nice. Where did you find that? Where did you find that? Alright, our signal has cleared. Again, it is hidden half way behind the mast. Yeah, and without the overhead catenary on Wolfurt Yard, they should have given us a diesel engine then. One thing I have learned is that when you're driving the Talent 1 here in this DLC in double traction and you turn on your main circuit breaker too early on these dead sections, then you manage to switch off your rear train set while the front train set is still working. And then you just slow down your train a bit in the way that Talent 2 is slowed down in rapid transit, as we have seen 2 weeks ago. And that happens if you turn on the main circuit breaker if after the first pantograph has reached the end of the dead section but not the second one. So, getting closer to Wolfurt. This is Schwarzach here. Porty announced. I always like to release the air brakes as soon as we made the 65 for the PZBM. And then adjust the speed with the electric brake alone. Here is the main signal telling us 40. And since we're going into this interlockings for the yard, ES, Einfahrsignal. It will be valid until we get to the next main signal. Ausfall. What just stopped working? I think after a signal like the one that we got when entering the yard here, we actually need to be wary that any shunting signals, Schutzsignale, on our way can actually be read. But there was none on our path. So yeah, but back to your right, here are no cranes, and every track has overhead catenary. But actually it's an interesting question. How do they do that in a modern container terminal? They probably get in the trains with electric locomotives and then uncouple them and have them handled with diesel shunters in the area where you have cranes and stuff. They lower the pantograph with momentum, I see. But... or have bimodal locos, I see, okay. But the thing with momentum only works if you actually want to get out on the other end again. And not stopping in the section where you don't have overhead catenary. And then they use bimodal or last mile diesel engine locos. Both ends have wires only in between. There are none. Now that makes sense. So you just coast along this section. So okay, here we are. Uncoupling. So that we do probably full service. And then we uncouple our cars here. Oh, I still have to go on. With whatever I'm doing here. No, I'm probably not a train anymore, but a shunting movement. Pulling up to the signal. My next Statia is bed, because I have 2 shifts tomorrow. That makes sense. Okay, that was that. Yep. I am not a train anymore, Tiger 2024. What is that? Since when I am not a train anymore? Okay. That was that. Freight service with Vectron on S-Bahn Vorarlberg, and with the question why we are always limited to 100 kilometers per hour as a freight train in Austria. If anyone knows why this is so in the game, please let me know. I would really like to know, because either we should be allowed to go first. I am not a train anymore, I see. I'm not getting you today, CD Radar. Unfortunately, HJ is not here to explain. This is quite a long way to explain another Dovetail bug. Yes, actually, the thing is with stuff like this, somebody must have had an idea about why doing it like this, and it'd be interesting to know what was the idea behind it, and maybe someone knows things that I don't know, and I'm always happy to learn. Thank you, guys. I will think more about the idea of getting a multiplayer stream going for the next special stream. Next week we will probably already be in Train Sim World 5, because then it will already be the early access, no? 17, 12, 7, yeah, probably. And then we can discuss if it is worth it or not. Still not sure whether I will buy the deluxe edition or the standard edition, but probably I will buy the deluxe edition anyway, even if I don't really see the big benefit, except for this one train. Anyway, guys, thank you for staying with me. I will now check on the dogs and hopefully be able to get AJ from her work soon. Yeah, well, I will become a simrail guy, maybe. Maybe, actually, I am always a guy who likes to play both things, if they are both good. And they are both good. And, yeah, nothing beats variety, I guess. See you soon. Take care.